a Jackie Patru and Sweet Liberty.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on Sweet Liberty. Today is Wednesday, the 15th of December. And I, just before the program, I was transcribing some information off the videotape that we were talking about last night, The Truth About Joyce Riley, according to Peter Kawaja.
The world can therefore seize this opportunity to fulfill the long-held promise of a new world order, where brutality will go unrewarded.
Okay, I'm back with you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. I hope you can hear the words to the song, Blinded by the Lies. We all have been blinded by the lies, and that's what we're going to be talking about once again this evening. First, I want to share our spiritual message for you and for me. Always a reminder, this is from my perpetual calendar. It says, there is no right way to do the wrong thing. There is no right way to do the wrong thing. Character is a victory, not a gift. Lord, you know that I often turn circumstances round and round, trying to make the wrong thing seem right. Thank you for the victories won when I bring these circumstances to you and follow your direction. Help me, Father, please, to walk in a way pleasing to you. Amen. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen, and I really regret that I did not get this transcription completed. For those of you who may be tuning in tonight for the first time, or if you're a irregular listener, we have been discussing, actually we were discussing this last night. We had Fred Ehrlich on with us. Fred and Sandy have the tape ministry here in New Freedom, Pennsylvania. And one of the videotapes that I recently received from Fred is a video. It's a 4.5 hour long video. The Real Joyce Riley, according to Peter Kawaja. And it's Peter Kawaja sitting in a room at a table with a TV monitor and audio cassette player and talking. And he has papers laid all out in front of him on a large table. And basically, the videotape doesn't, once again, here we go, the information on the videotape doesn't leave room for doubt that Joyce Riley, whoever she is not who she has been presenting herself to be. And as I told you last night on the air, I've known this for a long time. I've known it within me. I've known it intuitively. I've been concerned. And I did wonder, what in the world happened to Peter Kawaja? What in the world happened to Peter Kawaja? Because, you see, Peter Kawaja, just to go back quickly, in 1989, according to Joyce Riley herself, by the way, on one of the videos that she made after she had met Peter Kawaja and had seen the documented evidence of what he was saying. And remember, when I became first involved in this patriotic mess, it was a couple of years after I got involved in 92. In fact, it may have been 93 when I first heard of Peter Kawaja. He began appearing on some radio programs to get his evidence, his information out. And then suddenly there was no Peter Kawaja. There was Joyce Riley, and that's all. Joyce Riley led people to believe that she came home from the Gulf War sick. She was an evac nurse, I think, that she was called. She came home sick and began researching to find out why she was ill. And that's when she discovered that the biochemicals were being used on Gulf War military personnel. Now, here's a question that Peter Kawaja asks, and I never thought of this myself. lead one to believe since the Gulf War occurred in 1991, she came home after a 6-month stint sick, and she began doing research. When you get this videotape from Sandy and Fred, you'll hear Joyce Riley on May the 6th, 1995, during her interview with the Doctors Nicholson, say to her listening audience, she did a program called Nurse Talk in Texas. And she made the statement very clearly, very succinctly, that she had been researching this subject for several hours, after she said researching this for several hours, I could not bring this information to you. That was May 6, 1995. She said she had researched it for several hours. Now, folks, right there, that ought to set off a lot of warning bells. A lot of warning bells. And what information that Peter Kawaja was bringing forth, and what has happened to Peter Kawaja? I've been trying to find him, and I spent a day this week, before yesterday, I guess it was. I don't know if this is true. They're on the video. He says she has told people that he had changed his name, that his name really wasn't Peter in the beginning, that his name is really Abib, and that he is relatives of the Barbudis, the people that he was exposing, that he was a government, that he was a CIA agent. I don't know if this is true, but I'm going to read to you the transcript of the tape that I have listened to, and then I'm going to let you make up your own mind. I wish you could have heard, but you see, I knew I wasn't going to be able to play it for you. Evidently that she had sent to him, and the tape pretty much speaks for itself. And I wish that I could do this in the seductive voice in which this tape was done, because you will get the real gist of it. And after I get done with this, I will give you Fred Ehrlich's address again, and you can order this tape, and you can watch it for yourself. The tape starts out, now he did say that these are excerpts, so evidently some stuff was left out. Said, today is July 7th, 1995, and I decided I was just going to record a message to you, because it seems that right now I don't have enough money to talk to you as much as I would like to talk to you. I don't know if there is enough money to talk as much as I would like to long distance. Then I decided I would just kind of off the cuff talk to you a little bit, and perhaps that would make you feel better. And maybe when you're down or you feel really alone, perhaps you could play the tape. And then if you want to play it or destroy it or tape over it, I certainly understand. I think it's more for my therapy than it is yours. Of course, you don't need therapy. Laugh. I'm the only one that does. Trying to focus on what is important and trying to deal with the feelings also that I have in knowing you, which has superimposed truly my previous existence. I don't know that I will ever be the same person again for knowing you, for which I'm grateful. But I just thought I would just share some feelings, not business. I don't want to talk our other life, because we could do our other life all the time. I swear, I think, and there was something said there inaudible, but right now I just kind of want to focus on what you have done for me and what you have taught me. And when I transcribe this, ladies and gentlemen, I put little dots where the pauses are, so I'm pausing where the pauses were on the tape, just so you know that I'm not making this up. Okay, then she went on. She said, your concern today was well received. I appreciate your concern for my safety and concern, and to give you the assurance that I'm not going to walk out on you. I'm not going to turn away from you. I'm not going to be bought off. I'm not going to be scared off. I don't think it would be possible. But then anything's possible. For anyone to say that they have no absolute, I don't know that I would trust. And for right now, it's sort of like a baby step to this giant step that I was going to be involved with you. There is a magic in being involved with you. There's a magic in knowing you. It has to be real. Nothing this incredible could be unreal or not true. And you know, if I never saw you again, it would have been complete. Believe that. I could not have continued to exist as I do now without having met you. Every second was a year before I met you. I wanted that much to know who you are, what you were, how you were in person. Maybe I have been so involved in your life from afar that it was just, I don't know, maybe you can think of the word. There was something there that said you have to see this person, you have to meet this person. Do something, and so I did, and I have been changed for having done it. I am one of those people who is truly a better person for having known you, as are all people for having known you. In reality, if the truth were known, people are better who haven't even known you because you were there. And so I just wanted to set my mind to rest and to talk to you in a peaceful, more quiet tone, because your spirit is so strong. I feel it around me so much. I really believe that you are with me, and I sometimes stop and imagine when I'm faced with an issue I don't know how to deal with, or it is uncomfortable, I will simply say, what would Peter do? Or imagine you working through a problem. It gives me so much confidence, because Peter, I need to tell you this, and I know you know it, but you need to hear it from me also, and that you are a brilliant person. You're far above average, not only in your intellect, in the way you handle information, make decisions. You are so far above the average person that I'm sure they're intimidated by you tremendously. And that is not intentional. That is not a negative. It's just that you are a challenge for most people. I personally accept the challenge for myself. I kind of like the idea. But I called a friend of mine here who, I guess my only use and confidant, and told him that I wanted him to promise that if anything happened to me, I dropped out of sight for whatever reason, that the first thing I wanted him to do was call you and tell you that it wasn't because I left you, or that I walked away from the cause, or that I was, and that was inaudible, that word, folks, or that I was just gone someplace else. No one can ever say what forever will be or what always will be, but I know in my heart of hearts. And so with that, I guess you're listening to KFCC Joyce Riley, Nurse Talk Radio. Not really. But every time I start to take a break, I feel I have to say that. Give a station ID. I'm going to take a break right now, and I want to play a song for you that is very special to me, and I hope it's special to you too. And then the song that was played, folks, was cut out of there. And then she says, I'm also sending it to you to support you because you deserve it so much. I'm not altruistic in saying that. I'm here because Peter needs this. Absolutely not. I'm here because Joyce needs this. But I think we need it together. But first and foremost, I know how strong my feelings are. And if I didn't care about you the way I do, if you were... And with this song, it makes me think of you when you're not around. I think it gives me some comfort and some solace. And I hope it does for you also. I play it a lot and think about you. And then the song, part of it was left on, and it was something about close your eyes, make a wish. And then she said, well, I guess that makes me feel closer to you, to know that you're somewhere out there under the same sky. I wonder how many people really listen to the words to these songs, and I wonder if they understand. And that was in an audible word. In the first place, obviously there were some intense emotions somewhere, because one can't fake these emotions. One can't hide the feelings. And by the way, I guess I need to give you my disclaimer at this point that in case they use the L word, it doesn't count unless it's spoken. You know that. It feels so good talking to you like this. I hope that this kind of thing will get to be a habit. I hope you appreciate it. And I hope you don't feel it is a intrusion into your privacy. I hope this makes you feel more comfortable, and you can lay down, close your eyes, and listen to this when you get really intense and feel you're alone. Hope this tape will let you know you're not alone, Peter. I'm there. I promise you, I'm there. And if you ever doubt it, put a tape on and relax and know that someone cares for you very much, probably more than would even be realistic at this point. But that's okay, because, see, there's no rules for big boys and girls, so everything's okay. And then something was said that was inaudible, and she said, and I appreciate your saying that, and it's really comforting to even think of that. But here's your next song. And then she played another song for him. And then she said, you know, I guess it's probably true. And then she said something that was inaudible. I know my life well enough to know that. That is the way it is. Both trying to preserve each other's feelings. There was no hiding anything. There was no pretending, at least on my part. There was no phoniness. I want to tell you, I'm really enjoying being able to say whatever I want to say, and hope that you're not judging me. It is probably the only thing that would concern me is that part of you are just dissecting what I'm saying, rather than just saying, then that was an inaudible word. It's just that I'm overcome with emotions. I was overcome with the compelling idea that this is not what I thought I was getting into. And then I know you've been in it for 5 years. And I know that you are so intense in what you're doing. You don't know what I went through inside while I was with you, from a tremendous high one day to a tremendous low the next. And it was obvious that I was overcome with emotions. And if I could say anything to you, it would be patient with me, because you've been living this. I have not. And to get to know you is to get to know what you've been living. I was overcome and overwhelmed to the point where I don't think I could have taken in any more information. And I almost had to retreat back here to Houston, of all places, to recoup. And it was not a fun day, the day I returned, and it was not a good day. It was not a day I enjoyed at all. And it was for a reason. And everything hit me, and ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got done. There's a little bit more on that tape, and I will tell you that on one part of the tape, towards the end, she said how much she wanted to see him. She said, I want to see you, I want to touch you. And she said something about, get ready for the hug at the airport, and please hold me until I stop crying. Now, I don't know. That sounds a little bit seductive to me. I don't know how it sounds to you. I guess about her work with the Gulf War syndrome. And so anyway, when the reporters did their investigation to do the story, they came back, and Peter Kawaja was reading from what he said were inner office memos of the Birch Society. And there is a letter that he has written to the Birch Society asking them why didn't you print the true story? Because, you see, they declined to do a story on her involvement, on Joyce Riley's involvement, according to Peter Kawaja, and according to this letter that allegedly had been sent to the Birch Society, that they said that her information didn't stack up, and that basically you could take Joyce Riley with a grain of salt. Now, that would make you wonder, wouldn't it? If they found out, folks, please, this is not for sensationalism. Please know that. I want you to think of the importance of the role that this person, who is the only spokesperson out there for these Gulf War veterans, who is she? And what is she? And what has happened to Peter Kawaja? And what about these Gulf War vets? You see, Peter Kawaja, on this videotape, talks about the biochemicals. On the 6th of May, 1995, she had the Dr. Nicholson on. That's when she said, after researching this for several hours, I could not bring this information to you. That was in May of 95. In June of 95, she had Peter Kawaja on her Nurse Talk program, and she made the statement there that this program that they were doing, the information that they were going to be sharing, could change the course of history. Now, it says, Peter Kawaja says, what Joyce Riley is using today for her evidence is the Regal report. This is the one thing, David, that, this thing about Joyce Riley has bothered me for so long. I can't tell you for how long. And I never could say anything on the air because...
Well, you were more on top of it than I was.
Yeah.
I heard her on Art Bell talk about the Hellfire missiles being fired into the Waco.
Yeah, say that. Tell her whatever we have to ask, don't we? And last night we got into a conversation about the videotape. Actually, we got into the conversation night before last when Fred was on the program with us. The videotape that I had watched, titled "The Truth About Joyce Riley According to Peter Kawaja." I believe that's the name of the tape. And I was sharing with you information that was on that tape. I was sharing with you some of the excerpts from tapes that Peter was playing. And I got a call this evening from Joyce Riley. And Joyce had been getting calls. And don't ask me why. It never dawned on me that I was going to be called by Joyce. It would make sense, of course. Maybe. But anyway, she had been hearing that I had made the claim or the statement that she never had Gulf War syndrome, Gulf War illness. And I assured her that I did not say that. I explained to her that it was Peter Kawaja who asked a question when Joyce Riley had talked about completing her duty during the Gulf War and being ill and find out that she had Gulf War illness. Peter Kawaja asked the question, if she did have Gulf War illness, what was it that cured her, that got her well? And if there is a cure, where is it? And she was upset that I discussed the tape. And I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, before I came on here tonight, that I asked that the Holy Spirit would fill my mind, and that He would speak for me or through me. And so therefore, I pray that I am getting out of the way, and I pray that the Holy Spirit is speaking through me. I was threatened with a lawsuit. In fact, when Joyce said that she was going to sue, I had asked her if she knew where Peter Kawaja was, and she said no. And I asked, well, how can you sue Peter Kawaja if you can't find him? And she said, no, it wouldn't be Peter, it would be myself, and it would be WWCR. Well, I explained to her that to sue me would be like trying to get blood out of a turnip. I have nothing. Oh, I have a lot. I have blessings galore, but of physical stuff. I own no home. I have no income. I don't even own an automobile. And then she said, well, then they would sue WWCR. And I suggested that suing a radio station, which has absolutely no ability to control or know what a broadcaster is going to do or say, would not be a Christian thing to do. And that is true. We all know that's true, don't we, folks? And then she brought back to me that it wasn't a very Christian thing of me to do, to discuss this tape on the air without having talked with her first, and that may be the case. I watched the video a little bit more tonight, and I'm told that the information on the video is all untrue, and it's rantings and ravings, and I am going to decline from having any more comment about it for this evening, folks. I have invited Joyce to come on with me Monday. She wanted to come on this evening initially, but I said, well, there were some things that I wanted to address, because there are some things I want to address with you outside of the subject. So I invited her to come on Monday. And so she wanted me to undo the damage that I have done. I said, I don't know how you undo something that you've done, and that I should do an apology. I won't do an apology at this time. There's more evidence that needs to come through. And if my discussing this videotape and urging you to get the videotape so you can see for yourself what's on the tape was a wrong thing to do, and if I discovered that it was wrong, of course, I will make an apology. I am not making an apology at this time. My intention, ladies and gentlemen, bringing forth the information that I brought you about the videotape, was to have you see the videotape and to maybe make up your own mind on it. We have a call coming in. No, I spoke with Dave Von Kleist, I believe the name is, her husband. And the one thing I asked, but of course he said they don't know, is what happened to Peter Kawaja. Peter Kawaja came out in 1989 with damning evidence against people in the federal government, government officials, Congress people, high government officials. And of course, you know, Joyce Riley has admitted to seeing this evidence because it was on one of her own videos where they talked, and she talked about and actually showed the warrant that they used. They said it was, Fred, they said it was a emergency powers warrant or something.
Right.
It had to be done by an executive order.
Right.
And this was after Peter Kawaja had wiretapped the factory and the living quarters, evidently, or whatever, the corporate. They came in with this and they took everything.
Right.
And so that we could probably be pretty sure that this evidence exists. I mean, it was out. Peter Kawaja was. I talked with Roger Monday tonight. He called me, and Roger said that they had brought Peter in at one time into Kansas, the 10th Amendment Society. And I said, well, what was your take on him? He said he was nervous about security, which I think I would be too, Fred, if I had this type of damning evidence. And he said, I said, was he documented? He said, volumes of documents.
Well, if you view the tape.
Hey, do you know anything about the attorney on CNN? When I was talking to Dave tonight, Dave on Kleist, he said that Joyce's attorney is a guy that we see all the time on CNN being interviewed, and his name is Jim Perdue or something like that. That must be a pretty high-powered attorney.
Maybe, yeah.
It must be if he's on CNN. I mean, you get on CNN because you're some guy in a diner, Fred?
Well, I don't know. They've also done bits and pieces with Morris Lee. I mean, D's, so, you know, you can take it for what it's
Well,
worth.
he said that you see this attorney all the time on CNN. And I wondered if he was one that does the program. They have this court something, or legal, I forget what it's called. That Greta Von somebody is one of the main people on it. She's a lawyer, and they discuss the legalities of certain things.
Oh, I see.
And I don't know if it was meant to frighten me, but I will tell you that, I don't know. I guess somebody has to have something when you sue them.
Well, maybe so. Maybe so. But then again, it could be a blessing in disguise. Have you ever heard?
Yes, the guy in Florida.
Yeah. Now, he has a documentary video out all about Janet Reno.
Oh, yes, I've seen it.
It is a powerful video. And in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of the video, he begs Janet Reno to sue him.
Yeah.
To get get her into open court. And let her try and disprove anything that is said.
On this videotape, Peter Kawaja was asking Joyce Riley to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Because I was told, I've been told that by Joyce and by Dave that he was saying terribly slanderous things about her. And then on this video, Peter says that I can prove it tonight. Right. The reason that they never took him to court is that their attorney told them that there was nothing they could do because it was just slander. It wasn't damaging.
Right.
In other words, the faxes that went out and all the email message that they say that went out that Peter had said about Joyce was only slander, but the fact I talked about this video is damage.
Oh, I see.
She's talked to the attorney already.
Well, how could that be damage?
Well, how do you call answering to? And she said she hadn't seen it. And I found that interesting that she knew about the video and hadn't looked at it.
Right.
I tell you what,
I would be more
it would
than
take a team of wild horses to keep me from watching a video.
I would be more than happy to supply Joyce Riley with a copy that we have
then
at no cost.
Later in our conversation, she said her attorney has a copy.
Oh, okay.
I said, oh, well, then you have seen it. And she said, no, I haven't. And I asked why, and she said she didn't want to. She didn't need to see it. And then later in our conversation, she said she had a transcript, and I said, oh, then you do know what's in the video. And as I was explaining something to her that Peter Kawaja had said, I said, I don't know why I'm telling you all this. You do have a transcript. You know what's in the video. And she said, well, that was a long time ago, and she didn't remember exactly what was in it.
Well, the video is 4 hours long, so that transcript must be pounds in weight.
I did ask Joyce about that today. And she said, yes, that she saw the information. She did see the documents, but that she was never given any of them.
Right. I don't think really there's anybody got a leg to stand on so far as doing anything against you because you haven't done anything that's wrong.
Okay. Thank you.
What you have is in the public domain.
That's true. It is true, isn't it?
That's in the public domain, and it's being handled by more than one distributor.
Well, you know, actually, Joyce told me tonight that it was really great that I did this. It's what they've been waiting for, to have the reason to do a lawsuit. Because as I was explaining, I guess that all of the things that Peter has said wasn't damaging enough. It had to wait till I brought it public on the radio.
Oh, that's a little bit ridiculous, because if anything could have been done, it would have been from him in the first place.
Yes, and he did, on the tape, he did urge her to take him into court.
I'm quite obvious, worldwide.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on Sweet Liberty. And today is Monday, the 20th of December. And I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I bet you've been busy, at least most of you. It's a busy season, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we're going to dispense with any chatter tonight. Last week we were discussing a videotape that Peter Kawaja had put out about a year and a half ago, titled, I believe, The Real Joyce Riley, according to Peter Kawaja. And I had, as I told you, received a call on Thursday from Joyce asking to come on the air and let our listeners hear her and her side of this information. So our guest this evening is Joyce Riley. And I want to share first our spiritual message, and then we're going to get started, ladies and gentlemen. That most of you are aware of who Joyce Riley is. She's with the American Gulf War Veterans Association. And Joyce, welcome to Sweet Liberty.
Thank you, Jack.
And you have to speak up, dear, if you want our listeners to hear you.
Well, this is all I can do, unfortunately.
Okay. We'll do the best we
They'll
can
have to do it from their end, the board ops end.
Well, Joyce, you had called me Thursday after you had gotten phone calls from people when I was discussing the videotape in question, and you had been given information from people who called, or at least somebody who called, that told you that I had made the statement that you never had Gulf War illness, right?
Well, I'd like to make a statement before I begin. Since you made a statement on your program, I'd like to begin with a statement. There are several allegations and insinuations made by Jackie True on WWCR radio. When I heard of these, I immediately called you and WWCR. I have been on this radio station several times, and I talked with George McClintock at WWCR, who I had spoken to only once before. There was a time when there was a silver and coin dealer advertising on that station who said he was donating a portion to Gulf War veterans. It was not happening. The people were being defrauded. I called him and told him that the Attorney General had intervened from Arizona and that to continue doing this would only defraud the people. Jackie, I do not know you. I have never listened to you. I want to make it very clear that you never contacted me or attempted to ask me about this videotape.
No, and I never said
I am appalled.
And I never said that I did.
Go public on the air with no documentation or facts. This showed to serve the people as an excellent example of patriot movement attacking their own. This video is all one person's opinion. It does not make it true just because one person says it. There are many videos out there. We don't choose to play them all. You said you have never met this man or ever talked with him. Well, you certainly could have called me. I'm very approachable, and I would have discussed this with you. This video was made available to many talk show hosts. They all sent me a copy of it, talked with me about it, and I told them what was true in it and what was not. They then chose not to air it because when they contacted the author of this videotape for documentation to back it up, none was forthcoming. The relationship that I had with this man in this video is absolutely one that I will be forever grateful for, because it has taught me not to trust people. I have remained independent since that time. Did I care about him at that time? Absolutely. It shows in what I said. And I would like to ask everyone out there how you would feel about a personal letter of yours being aired.
Actually, it wasn't a letter, Joyce. It was a tape, remember?
It makes no difference what it was, obviously what the intent was. I would like for anybody who has any information regarding Jackie True then to provide it, and let's go toe-to-toe. That's not the issue. It was made available to many talk show hosts. They all sent me a copy of it, talked with me about it, and I told them what was true in it and what was not. They then chose not to air it because when they contacted the author of this videotape for documentation to back it up, none was forthcoming. The relationship that I had with this man in this video is absolutely one that I will be forever grateful for, because it has taught me not to trust people. I have remained independent since that time. Did I care about him at that time? Absolutely. It shows in what I said. And I would like to ask everyone out there how you would feel about a personal letter of yours being aired.
Actually, it wasn't a letter, Joyce. It was a tape, remember?
It makes no difference what it was. It's obviously what the intent was. I would like for anybody who has any information regarding Jackie True then to provide it, and let's go toe-to-toe. That's not the issue, Jackie. That's not what I would ever do. People know that I'm above that. But Be that as it may, it is not important for this kind of thing to be aired. A personal relationship. I was, at the time, his biggest supporter. I have admitted that. Tempted to do everything that I could to help this man until he did not come through with the evidence.
Now, Joyce.
I helped him in every way possible.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Now let me make my
No. Excuse me just a second here. Now, this is...
Okay, you made your statement. Let me
Wait. You're a guest here. Now, I know you're reading what you're saying, but when I have a question, I am going to ask you. And if you had a question, and I was talking for 5 minutes, I certainly...
No, I want to keep my train of thought.
Well, just keep reading your paper there, Joyce.
No, this is...
Here, my question is this. You're saying that nothing on the videotape, there is no evidence to document it. You're saying...
No pay, no benefits. I am a whistleblower.
Okay.
Check out Riley versus St. Luke's Episcopal Hospital, 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. If you want to see how much I am going to pursue an issue, you can see that from Riley versus St. Luke's Episcopal Hospital. Number 2, you stated that on my radio show that after hours of intervention or investigation that I decided to come forward.
Excuse me. No. Now, Joyce, if we're going to talk tonight, let's keep... I know you did, and I didn't state on the radio. I was quoting from what you said. Let's keep this clear, shall we? No, I didn't take anything out of context, dear. I was only reading.
3,
Excuse me, Joyce.
You made the discussion as to whether or not I have the go.
Now, Joyce, if we're going to talk tonight,
I have heard
let's keep... I know you did, and I didn't state on the radio. I was quoting from what you said. Let's keep this clear, shall we?
You stated...
No, I didn't take anything out of context, dear. I was only reading.
3,
Excuse me, Joyce. Joyce.
You made the discussion as to whether or not I have the go. I should not have to prove mine, but I already have. Why am I better?
Wait, excuse me. Will you please repeat that? Excuse me. Will you please repeat that? What you just said.
Repeat what?
The last statement you just read off your written statement that you're making. You said that I said something.
Well, we'll let the tape prove itself. All right.
Joyce, look, we're not going to have this program if we're not going to have a back-and-forth conversation.
No, let me make my statement, and I'll be glad to answer.
Look, all you have to do is put your finger in the place where you stopped. I would like you to repeat what you just said.
I can't recall verbatim what I just said.
What did you just read?
I didn't read it.
Okay. Wait, I did not allegate, Joyce. Now, we have the tape, so we can play it back. And by the way, of course, I listened back after you called me. I quoted Peter Kawaja from a videotape that is public domain and not copyrighted. So please get your statement clear.
The hellage I review is the husband of the man who prescribed the doxycycline for me. Now, let's move on. I am so sure of what I say, I would submit to a polygraph any time.
You need to speak up because I'm afraid our listeners aren't being able to hear you too well.
With the author of this video. I will offer, like I said, thousands of dollars to anyone. I hereby demand that WWCR, Fred Ehrlich, and Jackie Petru either come up with the supporting evidence for claims made or give me a full written apology, an apology on the Internet, and one carried on WWCR. Affect our veterans. The thousands I have dealt with, they are serious allegations. I will now, Jackie, promise to you that I will add you to our Hall of Shame with John McManus, Maura Dees, and the Southern Poverty Law Center. Anyone who wants to challenge me can call me at the following phone number. I am always available. I will return your call. It will not cost you a thing. 800-231-7631. If you have any question about my integrity or why I am in this. This video contains nothing but rantings for 4.5 hours. There is no evidence.
Actually, he wasn't ranting, and what he was doing was playing excerpts of videotapes, audio tapes.
They do not prove anything.
Well, Joyce, there are some inconsistencies. Then maybe, what might be a good idea is if we could clear the inconsistencies up tonight.
There are no inconsistencies.
Well, for
in what
example,
I am doing.
there are inconsistencies in statements that you've made, Joyce.
Now,
do you want to
going on the air?
do you want to address these, or
let me just finish? You are no better than Dan Rather or CNN by going on the air with gossip. This ought to affect your credibility forever. If this is inaccurate, how many other things have you reported to the public that is inaccurate? And you bet I will fight for these bets. If you want to see how far, you check the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and see how far I will fight for these bets. I will continue doing exactly what I have done for these bets, only more. And how dare you come forward with no evidence and trash to someone who is out there trying to do something about
Joyce,
it.
once again, I was discussing a videotape that is public domain and that is non-copyrighted. Now, here, are you up for some questions?
What are
because
wait a minute. I am not going to deal with innuendo or transcripts of their programs. Let's deal with facts. I have said, and I'm going to say George McClintock to you, WWCR, and Fred Early, produce the evidence to support these things. I will give you 10 days. I am not going to participate in this. My phone rings off the hook day and night with Gulf War veterans, and you haven't even touched one of the positive things that we're doing. But you're insinuating to them that I am doing something for the CIA. Those very, very...
Do you want to answer some more questions?
I have
some questions for you.
Yes, your questions are not based on fact.
Well, wait a minute. Now, you've made the statement, and I have one of your speeches here that you made in Texas. You made the statement that when you came back from your tour of duty, you were ill and you couldn't get any answers and you began investigating. Now, that would have meant somewhere around 1991 or early 92, right?
No, that's not correct.
Well, okay, when did you come back from your stint?
I came back in 91, but I was quite sick for 3 years. I didn't do anything for 3 years.
Oh, okay, well then that was a little misleading because you said when you got back you were ill and you couldn't get any answers so that you began investigating.
Now, wait a minute. Don't tear apart my story. My story is my story. And I came back. I was sick for 3 years. You can see the documents. I did not become involved in this until 1995 when a woman named Linda Thompson told me about that man that authored that video.
Back from your stint.
I came back in 91, but I was quite sick for 3 years. I didn't do anything for 3 years.
Oh, okay. Well, then that was a little misleading because you said when you got back you were ill and you couldn't get any answers so that you began investigating.
Now, wait a minute. Don't tear apart my story. My story is my story.
Would have meant somewhere around 1991 or early 92, right?
No, that's not correct.
Well, okay, when did you come back from your stint?
I came back in 91, but I was quite sick for 3 years. I didn't do anything for 3 years.
Oh, okay, well then that was a little misleading because you said when you got back you were ill and you couldn't get any answers so that you began investigating.
Now, wait a minute. Don't tear apart my story. My story is my story. And I came back. I was sick for 3 years. You can see the documents. I did not become involved in this until 1995 when a woman named Linda Thompson... Don't tear apart my story. My story is my story. And I came back. I was sick for 3 years. You can see the documents. I did not become involved in this until 1995 when a woman named Linda Thompson told me about him. That's my story. And I came back. I was sick for 3 years. You can see the documents. I did not become involved in this until 1995 when a woman named Linda Thompson told me about him, that man that authored that video. That is how I had contact with him. I didn't even know who she was. That is all.
So that you began investigating.
Now, wait a minute. Don't tear apart my story. My story is my story. And I came back. I was sick for 3 years. You can see the documents. I did not become involved in this until 1995 when a woman named Linda Thompson told me about him, that man that authored that video. That is how I had contact with him. I didn't even know who she was. That is all the basis in fact. Now, I will take a deposition anytime, any place.
So you didn't. Okay, now we have the Birch Society thing here. I found it on your. I found it on your website. The letter that you wrote to John McManus.
That's correct.
Asking him to do a story, and then his letter back to you saying you said here that they might be interested in searching for the truth.
That's correct.
Okay. And as you said, as I told you, I approached many within the organization who contacted JBS. I was repeatedly told an offhand comment that they questioned the credibility of your work. Now...
Wait a minute. They questioned the credibility of my work?
That this is in your letter that came off your website. You could go back and read it, Joyce. This is what you said to John McManus. You said, having respected the New American, I first approached members of the John Birch Society as the organization that might be interested in searching for the truth.
That's correct.
As I told you, I approached many within the organization who contacted JBS. I was repeatedly told an offhand comment that, quote, they questioned the credibility of your work.
That's correct.
Okay. He just went on to say that after they did some research, it said in February 11th, 97 letter, you make the claim that the material you have circulated via speeches is accurate. As you will note from the lengthy report compiled by Robert W. Lee, who is one of our top writers and researchers, your claim does not stand up to careful scrutiny.
I think that there is no question.
And then he asked you...
Wait a minute, Jackie. Wait a second, Jackie. It stands up to scrutiny. Anyone knows in their right mind there's a Gulf War illness.
Of course.
John McManus also said there is no evidence the government has covered up anything. Now, let's not deal here with the John Birch Society.
Well, then he said we urge you to study Mr. Lee's report very carefully.
Yes, it was absolutely fallacious. Absolutely. Get a copy of it yourself. And
well, how do we get a copy? Did you get the copy of Mr. Lee's report?
Yes, I did.
Well, what?
Every Gulf War veteran parent that I know of has dropped out of the John Birch Society because of that.
Uh-huh.
If you are going to take the side of the John Birch Society,
I'm not taking the side of the Birch Society.
Well, you are.
I'm wondering why Lee's report wasn't on there.
Because it's pages and pages of incorrect information. I am not going to support the fact that there is no Gulf War illness on my website when we have dying Gulf War veterans going to that website.
Well, they weren't really talking in Lee's report. I've got some excerpts of it. I don't have the whole report.
You are harming Gulf War illness.
I don't think.
Absolutely you are. Every veteran out there that hears this and says, oh my God, we've been betrayed again. Well, if there is one vet that calls me and is absolutely suicidal because he finds out he's been betrayed again, I will refer them to WWCR.
Well, you know what?
All the work that we have done for 5 years.
You told me you take phone calls all the time. Report.
You are harming Gulf War illness.
I don't think.
Absolutely you are. Every veteran out there that hears this and says, oh my God, we've been betrayed again, harming Gulf War illness.
I don't think.
Absolutely you are. Every veteran out there that hears this and says, oh my God, we've been betrayed again. Well, if there is one vet that calls me and is absolutely suicidal because he finds out he's been betrayed again, I will refer them to WWCR.
Well, you know what?
All the work that we have done for 5 years.
You told me you take phone calls all the time from vets and
I take phone calls all the
talking
time.
Talking them out of suicide.
And if you want to take the side of the John Birch Society and there is no Gulf War illness, more power to you. But I would question WWCR.
Excuse me. Once again, you're twisting it. No. Let me say this again. Robert Lee was not talking about whether or not there was a Gulf War incident.
Have you seen Gulf War illness in the
twisting it? No, let me say this again. Robert Lee was not talking about whether or not there was a Gulf War incident.
Have you seen Gulf War illness in the New American? No, you have not. Because there is no evidence the government has covered up anything according to John Society.
Talking about here were the inconsistencies.
There's no inconsistency, Jackie, other than what you are trying to take out of context. I told you I will be deposed any time, any place over what I am doing for these Gulf War veterans. I do not charge anything. I have no vested interest in this other than I believe that I am okay today. I am going to find a way to take care of these Gulf War veterans.
Well, okay.
It is your choice to continue with this vendetta.
Now, you have said...
I will not participate in this.
You have said...
Jackie, you are hurting the cause of Gulf War veterans. You might as well be working for the Department of Defense because you are doing the work for them.
Whatever happened to Peter Kawaja, Joyce?
He's not my responsibility. How am I supposed to know that?
But you know, when you had him on your program on Nurse Talk, and on the video where you used his documentation in the overheads.
And he also sent me a letter saying, "Do not ever use my documents again." Now ask him for that letter when you talk with him, because I'll be able to. Nobody knows where
Peter Kawaja is, Joyce.
Do not imply. This is a very serious accusation you are making, lady.
Accusation.
Do not imply I have anything to do with that.
Oh.
Because that is wrong. I do not know where
I think you're making things up here.
No, I'm not.
You are the one. Here, let me share one of the inconsistencies that Robert Lee wrote out. And this has nothing really to do with the Gulf War, see? It just has to do with inconsistencies in how you relate.
I have already said his information is not accurate.
Captain Riley claims to have had a personal relationship with former President George and First Lady Barbara Bush during one address. Now, you say that Peter Kawaja wrote you a letter and said not to use his information. Actually, Joyce, his information was public domain.
Well, the public domain information is still in my video. Absolutely it is. But the private information is not. The public domain is still on there. There's only one piece of it. Now, I am going to allow you to...
Actually, Joyce, his information was public domain.
Well, the public domain information is still in my video. Absolutely it is. But the private information is not. The public domain information is still my video. Absolutely it is. But the private information is not. That's on my video. Absolutely it is. But the private information is not. The public domain is still in there. There's only one piece of it. Now, I'm going to allow you to have this show back to yourself, and you can continue to do what you want to do. I will have these letters from George Bush on my website showing that that is absolute accurate information. Now, I am unfortunately very sorry to see what you have done to Gulf War veterans and what WWCR has done for veterans.
WWCR has done nothing, Joyce, and you're trying to build a case here.
They are giving you an opportunity to give out incorrect information.
Well, I will finish the program. I will finish the program.
That is your choice.
All right.
And I will talk to George McClintock tomorrow, and I will tell him how sorry I am. But you have to do what you have to do, and I have to do what I have to do, and I will continue to take care of the veterans. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Goodbye. Good night. Hi, you're on the air.
Just missed her.
Yeah. She didn't want to answer.
I wanted her to hang on so I could...
She didn't want to answer any... Oh, I know. Honey, she came up with a written... She came on with a written statement.
She was trying to lead you into making...
She did not allow me to ask some questions. I have a whole list of questions here for her.
Yeah.
The case is what she's trying to do.
Well,
now, the one thing here's what she said. She had said this to me, of course, not on the air, but she wouldn't talk about it tonight. When I asked why, if Peter Kawaja said all those terrible things about you, in fact, I was talking to Dave Riddell about it. I said, why didn't you sue him? Well, our attorney told us that we couldn't sue him because it was only slander. But now that I'm talking about a videotape that is public domain, non-copyrighted, it's damage. A lot of stuff here that I've pulled up. You know, I will say this, it's unless I'm not looking in the right place, it's very difficult to find information that Peter Kawaja had out, David. I was till 4:30 this morning going through websites. I have stuff. What I'm going to do is get this over to Darren to get up on our website, because when you first watch the video, if you don't have some background here, it sounds piecemeal. What you do here are the audio tapes, the videotapes, etc. But, you know, I think it's relevant. I think it's relevant that Peter Kawaja, well, maybe, you know, at his own, and I wouldn't blame him if he went, you know, into hiding and never came out again, but he wasn't the type of person to go into hiding. What happened to Peter Kawaja, as I could see, is that he began to get shut out until his information was shut down, David, ended, regarding the incident that happened with the girls who had you know, been, and they didn't use the word accosted, but by the man with the gun. All I'm saying is, he gave the name of the principal, the name of the school, and read this letter. So it appears that, you know, it was very soon after these questions began being asked that the Hammons were scared off. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying Joyce Riley did it. Don't get me wrong.
No. But
don't get me wrong.
There is something going on here.
Well, for example, when I talked with Joyce on Thursday, she said she had never seen the tape. I said, well, I think you'd want to get the tape if you want to know what you're going to be answering to.
Yeah.
And then she mentioned something about her attorney having the tape. I said, oh, then you do know what's on it. She said, no, I didn't watch it. My attorney did. I said, gosh, I would think you'd want to watch it. Then as we were talking a little later, I mean, you know, in the conversation, she mentioned something about having a transcript. And because I said, I don't know why. Yeah, because she said she had a transcript of it. When I said, I cannot believe you wouldn't want to see this tape. And I said to her, I don't know why I'm telling you this, what's on this tape. You know what's on it. You have the transcript. And she said, that's been a long time ago. Now, she was telling me, and she said it this evening, that I was the only talk show host that brought this tape forward, this videotape, because the other ones had the kindness to call her first and to ask her which parts of the tape were true and which parts weren't true. And she told them.
And I dialed the phone was to try and talk to Joyce. I had questions, but she bailed out.
She didn't come on here tonight to have a conversation or to do a radio program.
Well,
and she wasn't up to the questions.
I felt that she was pulling the presentation out of control, and I wanted to get back to the original basis of what her complaint is. That was not made clear to me.
Well,
Hello there, Jackie.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fine. Who is it?
This is Bill from Michigan.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, a very interesting show there tonight.
Well,
But I was hoping you'd press the issue of what happened to Peter. That's the
thank you, Bill.
that is the main point, isn't it?
Well, this was the whole point.
You can press that more, but she didn't want to talk about it.
No, she didn't, and she didn't want to answer any questions. And my questions were, they were fair and honest questions I had to ask. Peter Kawaja, I cannot find him anyplace, Bill.
Yeah, he's got to be found, and he's the key, Jackie.
Well, this is what Joyce Riley said, on that first videotape.
Yeah.
And he showed it he played excerpts of it on his videotape. And this is exactly what Joyce Riley was saying. He had the key to this whole issue.
Absolutely.
And then she talked about, even on that very first tape, she talked about what he'd been through and how Peter Kawaja isn't the kind of person, I don't think, Bill, to go underground.
Yeah.
He was out there. Of course, when he first...
Well, we're still just speculating, Jackie, but he's got to be found. That's the key.
Honey,
on the same side.
have you listened to my program for very long?
Oh, yeah, I've listened to it.
Then you have to know that my purpose for bringing this videotape out, Bill, was not to have beef with somebody, not to be divisive, not to put a, quote, wedge in between anything. Bill, there's something real wrong here. And what I'm going to suggest is for any of you who have doubts, first of all, get the videotape and then go into the website. I've pulled up quite a bit of stuff here. And, I've been watching this tape and reading this stuff to the point to where I'm getting a picture. And the whole picture is that Peter Kawaja was pretty much shoved under the rug. He was the one that had the information that could have busted this damn thing wide open. And he also had a lawsuit, which in fact Joyce Riley had made the statement on her own video, we have got to support this lawsuit. Now, I wanted to do that. I wanted to it all evening and I didn't get a chance. We had our guest last night who was on with us was Joyce Riley of the American Gulf War Veterans Association. And Joyce was on because last Wednesday I was sharing with you a videotape that I received 2 weeks ago titled The Truth About Joyce Riley According to Peter Kawaja. And as a result of that program, I received a call from Joyce Riley who said that she wanted to come on my program and be able to tell her part of that. In other words, to answer. And so she was on with us last night. And basically, we didn't get an opportunity to have much conversation because Joyce Riley had a written statement that she was reading, and I have no problem with that. Sometimes when I have something really important that I want to say, I would write it down to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But I don't understand why she said she wasn't reading what she was saying, because it was obvious to everybody who heard it. And I wonder why. I mean, why Why would you say I'm not reading it, I haven't written it down, when it was very obvious that you did? We've been talking about inconsistencies, and I don't know about you folks, but one thing I've noticed is that when a person's telling the truth, they're pretty consistent with what they're saying. And if a person isn't consistent, then you begin to wonder. We begin to wonder, don't we? I do. Joyce Riley, who claims that the videotape we discussed on the program had no veracity, there was nothing to it. Wouldn't it have been wonderful? Wouldn't it have been wonderful if we could have just discussed it? And some of the questions, as I said, I had some questions I would like to have asked Joyce. And the possibility is that maybe she would have had some feasible answers. Why she wasn't willing to say, I don't know. And how many of them are ill? How many of them have died? And I was wondering today, why? Why haven't I done any programs on this? And I thought, well, why I haven't is because I wasn't moved to bring the only spokesperson out there for the Gulf War vets. I wasn't moved to bring that person on the air. And you know, it's very interesting because before I got this tape, Effie and I were talking, and we talk quite often. Sometimes 2-3 times a week, sometimes more often. She'll pick up the phone and call because there's something really important that she's reading, or I'll do the same. And I must have said to Effie, over a 2 or 3 week period before I got this videotape, Effie, I want to find Peter Kawaja. I'm going to put a search out on the internet because Peter Kawaja, I never hear anything about him anymore. And then we would talk, and she'd ask me if I'd heard anything, and I'd say no, because I haven't been put out a search for Peter Kawaja. And as our Father would have it, the Holy Spirit, after about 3 weeks of that, then what wound up in my hands was the videotape that I was discussing last Wednesday night. I don't think there are too many accidents that occur, folks. But anyway, when I saw the videotape, of course, you know that I was moved to bring the awareness of that tape to your attention. And I'm going to urge you, each and every one of you, once again, order the tape. I'm going to give you... when I first talked to Joyce Riley Thursday night, she did tell me that she didn't have a copy of the tape, that she'd never seen it. Okay, that may be so. I can't prove it isn't so. I don't know about you, but if somebody put a 4-hour video out that had all kinds of things about you on it that were so damaging, at least you felt they were, that you were ready to sue an individual and a radio station which has absolutely no control over what broadcasters say, if it was that damaging, wouldn't you have watched it, folks? But anyway, later in our conversation, as she kept mentioning certain things about the tape, and I'd say, oh, well, then you did see it. No, my attorney saw it. And then she said something else about it, and I said, oh, well, you did see it. She said, no, I have a transcript of it. Now, here's what she told me last night. She said this video was made available, this is quote, this video was made available to many talk show hosts. They all sent me a copy of it, talked with me about it, and I told them what was true in it and what was not. They then chose not to air it because when they contacted Peter Kawaja, well, no, she didn't say Peter, when they contacted the author of this videotape for documentation to back it up, none was forthcoming. Now, that's debatable, too, because we don't know that. And she said I was, at the time, she was talking about when she was first working with him, I was at the time his biggest supporter. Everything I could to help this man until he did not come through with the evidence.
Now, my question, see, I didn't get a chance to ask these questions last night. One of the questions I would have asked Joyce Riley is, well, what evidence didn't come forth, Joyce? Because, folks, 1995, and if she said that she did everything she could to help Peter Kawaja until he did not come through with the evidence. I hope you can hear this, because the videotape that I got, and if she said that she did everything she could to help Peter Kawaja until he did not come through with the evidence. I hope you can hear this, because the videotape that I copied this from isn't very good. And if you can't hear it, you're just going to have to get a copy of the tape yourself and remember this statement that was made, that she did everything she could to help him until he did not come forth with the evidence. Now let's try this. That he made after he played this excerpt is this: so what if they don't have a relationship, a personal relationship? What difference does that make? In other words, in 1995, Joyce Riley was saying this is the man that has the key to the Gulf War issue. And this is the man. She talked about his lawsuit that he put forth, that he started in 1994, and she said, we have to support this lawsuit. And also, he said on videotape, he said, I'm not saying that what you're getting is lies, everything you're getting is lies. And he said the closer it gets to their plan being completed, the more information is coming forth. But you know, on this video that you heard an excerpt of, if you could hear it, she talked about what Peter Kawaja had gone through to bring this information forth. He lost his wife, he lost his home, and she mentioned that for 5 years he had been out there begging for someone to listen, and no one would listen. Now that wasn't quite true, ladies and gentlemen, because I knew about Peter Kawaja long before. Well, not like years, but at least a year or two before I ever heard of Joyce Riley. And suddenly it dawned on me, as I said, that I started wondering, well, what about Peter Kawaja? Where is he? And suddenly it dawned on me, as I said, that I started wondering, well, what about Peter Kawaja? Where is he? And I pray that Peter Kawaja has just decided to hell with this. That maybe we didn't deserve him. Somebody who's willing to risk everything that he risked. And maybe he's just not coming forth. And I pray that that's how it is. When you watch this videotape, I don't know about you, but when I watched the videotape, and I watched part of it again today, and every time I watch it, I hear something else, I pick up something else, and I understand a little bit more. And my heart goes out to this man. That's why she's well today. And I said, well, then you would have your medical records, wouldn't you? And she said, yes, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks and I can prove it. And I said, no, I mean, if you were medicating for these 3 years after you got out of your stint because you didn't go to the Gulf War, but then you would have those medical records, would you? And she said, yes, you would. So yesterday on program, I think that's probably why she said what she did, that I don't have to prove my medical records, so why should she have to prove hers? And she said also that I asked her what she had done for the Gulf War vets. Well, no, I didn't. I said Peter Kawaja asked, what has been done? Last night question, and she said, don't try to tear my story apart. My story is my story. That's why I wanted to look up that word tonight. A story is, what did it say? Relating an incident or something like that, usually fictitious.
Good evening, Jackie. This is Kate of New Jersey.
Hi, Kate. Oops, sorry.
I would like to tell the audience that of all the talk show hosts, patriots, etc., you are the only one that had the courage and tenacity to bring forth the truth about Joyce Riley. The reason I say the truth is because I have watched Peter Kawaja's film over and over and over, and if you keep watching it, you cannot help but think the honesty and the sadness that this man brought forth with the danger that was involved in his situation. When she says all over the different stations, they're saying she brought the Gulf War forth, which is not true. The gentleman, Peter, is the one exposed it because he found out that through his investigation and brought it first to the FBI. His life was in danger. His wife was murdered. He was poisoned. The Mossad poisoned him. And his house was burned down. He lost everything. And my question is, if Joyce is listening, I would really like her to call and say, quote, why would she ask for the names of these veterans? What does she do with the names? Does she have a cure for them? Does she have medication for them? And anyone with an ounce of sense knows that the shadow government, the Illuminati, the traitors of our country, do you think they would allow someone to expose and keep on talking as a lone voice, Jackie?
Well, it didn't seem to happen for Peter Kawaja, did it, dear?
No.
And, you know, something that I think about... Thanks for calling in tonight, by the way.
Thank you.
The thing about Peter Kawaja, he asked the question, why is it that there has been no harassment when what he went through, as you said, you know, the loss of his wife and how sad. Kate, do you know how many people had asked, you know, when you mentioned Peter Kawaja, they say, well, that name sounds familiar. Who is he?
Yes.
And he was the one that risked everything to bring it out. And remember that videotape where she said, okay, you're going to meet this man, and he's the man that has the key, and he can save America, and all of that. She made a statement that he was begging for people to listen to him. He was trying so hard to get the word out, and no one was listening. And she said on that tape, I was begging first, or something like that. I transcribed it, but he was getting the word out. You see, he had been on about 75 radio broadcasts, and he had started his lawsuit in 1994, Kate.
Absolutely.
And his evidence was presented in his case. And it was early 95 when Joyce Riley appeared on the scene. And then what in God's name has happened to Peter Kawaja, and where is he?
That's what I'm trying to find out, because somehow he just disappeared. And I hope to God that nothing has happened to him. And all these talk show patriots, etc., 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 that are for truth and honesty, why, they have the films. Why are they not bringing this out? If we are to turn this country around and bring out the truth and punish the perpetrators, why are they afraid? You know, Nora Davis, the marvelous, most wonderful patriot, his name has never been mentioned, said, quote, fear, force, and finance. That to me is the three most important words.
Said what?
Fear, force, and finance. People are afraid. They're afraid of their cozy, their little paradigms that they live in. But I really can't understand why, if they have the film, why aren't they questioning Joyce?
Well, she said that they did. Do you remember? She told me, and she said it on the air, that she's never watched that video. I found that very difficult to believe, to be honest with you. But then she turned around and said, all of the talk show hosts that received that tape, she said, they all sent me a copy of it, and they asked me what part of it was true and what part of it wasn't. And she told them, and she said, when they called Peter Kawaja for evidence, there was none forthcoming. That's BS.
Well, that really doesn't make sense. And why would I heard tonight a couple of the talk shows say, well, give Joyce a call. Why should these veterans call her? I mean, does she have the medication? Does she have the cure? Please call, Joyce. I want...
Right. Because you wanted to hear it, and I just wrote this down because the thought occurred to me, because that was my concern. If it is found out, you know, she made a statement, and it was probably just a Freudian slip, but she made a statement last week when she was reading her. Well, actually, she wasn't reading. She does better when she reads, her statement. But she said something about if there is even one Gulf War veteran calls up suicidal because he has found out that he's been betrayed again, I'm going to tell him to call WWCR.
Right.
She didn't say who believes he's been betrayed again. She says who finds out he's been betrayed again. And I thought, is that a Freudian slip? There that needs to be answered.
Exactly, and that's why your show is such a valuable resource, because you do, like this woman that preceded me. She said you have the courage to bring these things to the fore, whereas everybody else is doing a nice, tightly formatted radio show, and they present their guests as presenting the truth without question, and you don't make your presentations that way. You just put the facts on the table and what you found and say, here it is, make up your mind for yourself. Right?
Yes, although if I have absolute proof, I say here it is.
Right. Exactly.
You can read it and weep.
And that's the situation that's the situation with the Joyce Riley thing here.
In this case, I believe, and that's why I've urged people to get the videotape, to see it for themselves. And think about the questions that have been asked.
And let's try and find this Peter Kawaja.
This Peter Kawaja, isn't that a shame, honey? No? Is that I'm not very popular with my fellow broadcasters?
That's not true.
Well, no. The reason I said that is because today there were two of them who were lauding Joyce Riley. I thought it was quite timely, talking about hats off to Joyce Riley for all her work and all this. And then there was another one last week that had gotten an email message and said from her thanking him for all the support he has given her and the work she's doing in the Gulf War vets. And of course it was read on the air. And it's almost like a message, It's like...
So there, yeah.
It's I don't know. But, I found out tonight, and I did not know this, that Dick Boba sent this videotape to many other broadcasters. And I don't understand why they would just ignore it. I really don't understand, David. To ask, and I'm sorry, they're my questions too. Because, you see, he was out there for 5 years. There was nothing in it for that man. He had a huge contract. He could have kept his mouth shut, Sherry. Instead, he went to the CIA with his evidence because he didn't have a clue about, who's in control or what's in control of our government. And then, of course, they used him and said, we want you to find out everything you can for us. And when they found out what he knew, they nabbed the evidence. And
that's typical of the government.
So suddenly, you see, if that information was so critical that Joyce Riley said on the video that I saw, she learned all this from Peter Kawaja. And she admitted that on that video, that when she went to Florida, in fact, she said on the audio tape she's sending that she was absolutely overwhelmed. But she said on this video, speaking to an audience, that this man has the key, that he has the truth about the Gulf War illness. And this is out of her mouth, herself.
Well, yes.
Why isn't she still giving us evidence, Sherry?
Well, also, other broadcasters are talking about that this is Truth Radio, the shortwave, and that the other stations or regular radio and TV talks about Waco and Oklahoma, and at least people should be given some other points of view, and if the people make up their own mind as to what happened, but they were suppressing evidence, let's say about Oklahoma City, and they can only come to a certain conclusion because they were only given just one certain facts, bits of evidence, and the other things were suppressed. I think what's happening here is the exact same thing. evidence is being suppressed, and we're only given a certain point of view, and this isn't Truth Radio really anymore, except for your show, and your show has to stay on the air. And what I meant last week when you were talking about Huckleberry Finn,
oh yeah,
it's usually only after their deaths that artists, writers become famous, and maybe this was Peter Kawaja's only way to get people to pay attention to him and hear his voice. And what I'm hoping and praying is that maybe more and more broadcasters will maybe get this, or if they do have it, we will be talking about it, not just praising Joyce Riley like one broadcaster did today. Information also.
We'll review some of the material we did broadcast back then and review other aspects of the Gulf War with Peter Kawaja, who will share his views on events leading up to Operation Dead Storm following these messages.
The right reasons. You know, I happen to love this country. I believe in it. I mean, you realize what we're saying here. We sent our men and women off to war without protecting them adequately against chemical or biological attack, or informing them, or caring for them. Now, we're killing them. And we're covering it up.
But of all the injections, and the anthrax and botulisms and the nerve agent pills, you know, the body is God's gift.
The thing that comes through over and over again for all of us is the unbelievable human spirit, and how many people have fought the adversity of this ailment, of this syndrome.
Hey! Come on!
I don't think that we're pointing fingers. I think we're saying, this is what happened. We need to be talking about this. We need to demonstrate that we care. We need to take steps to find out what happened, so that people know. I mean, if you were sick, mysteriously sick, you'd want to know.
Parades were over. But the cover-up was just beginning.
We sent our men and women off to war without protecting them adequately against chemical attack.
Gas! Gas!
And we're covering it up.
There is no Desert Storm Syndrome.
Why are there no answers? Why will no one help?
They want to be told they're not crazy. That their country cares about them, for God's sake.
I want to live. I know you do.
And our special program today will focus on events in the Middle East in the beginning of 1991, when I was right there in Tel Aviv at the Tel Aviv Hilton to cover the Gulf War and admire the incoming Scud missiles fired by Saddam Hussein of Iraq against Israel. It was in those last desperate days of the war, Operation Desert Storm against Iraq, that we were actually anticipating the possibility of a spontaneous nuclear strike by Iraq against Israel, but to our relief, it never occurred. We'll review some of the material we did broadcast back then and review other aspects of the Gulf War with Peter Kawaja, who will share his views on events leading up to Operation Desert Storm following these messages. With me now is Peter Kawaja, who some of you may have remembered seeing on Nightline on ABC, Iraq. Peter, we've just seen this little segment on, nostalgic segment on the Gulf War, and there are certain aspects of the war and prior to it and the war itself that people aren't so much aware of.
Talking about this. Well, guess what? Just came out 10/10/95. There is such a thing as sexually transmitted cancer. Isn't it strange that all these things we've been talking about are now coming out? Well, let me talk to you a little bit about Peter Kawaja. Let's see, how much time do we have now on the videotape? 25 minutes. 25 minutes. Great. Let me tell you a little bit about Peter Kawaja. Peter Kawaja operated under a government code name. The reason he did this was he found out that biologicals were being made in the United States, and he was aware of the fact that it was essentially treason and that it was wrong. So the government then said, knowing that he was a good patriot, this is his name right here, and then one day he did something they didn't expect him to do. He wiretapped all of the phones at the Boca Raton plant, PIT plant. He wiretapped all of the phones at the corporate living quarters, and he wiretapped the phones at 777 Post Oak in Houston, Texas, which was their national headquarters. He wiretapped those phones, and he heard congressmen, he heard government officials in the Bush administration, and he found out that this was a joint venture with the United States. He realized that he had these wiretappings, or that he had tapped the phone lines, and guess what happened? He got served with a War Powers Act subpoena. The first War Powers Act subpoena we know of that has been issued since World War II. This is a subpoena that, as we understand it, took an executive order of President Bush to issue this. They came to his place of business with armed guards, and all of this evidence now remains, as we understand, at the Department of Justice. They will not release any of the information. It is being held under...
Is it conceivable that U.S. government agencies could have been unaware of Dr. Barbuti's activities in this country? He did not, after all, maintain what you might call a low profile. Peter Kawaja is a security specialist. Among the items he was told to install was a hydrogen cyanide detection system. Kawaja was also instructed to take armed teams of guards to Barbuti properties in Texas and Oklahoma. In 1989, the CIA, the FBI, and U.S. Customs had been told about Dr. Barbuti's activities here in the United States. In point of fact, however, the CIA had been informed much earlier. Their informant was an Israeli-born U.S. citizen by the name of Moshe Tal. He ran a company based in Oklahoma City that had developed several fuel enhancement formulas which could be used in everything from jet aircraft to rockets, and that these formulas were made up of ingredients that could also be used in fuel-air explosives and in chemical and biological weapons. Tal's company had licenses to export these chemicals. It was, they told him, a shopping list for chemical and biological weapons production. Tal contacts Israeli intelligence to find out more about Dr. Barbuti, director of the CIA.
500 times the production is quite a lot.
So we're talking about in August of '88, you supplied this information, yet the plant, subsequent to that, the plant was designed, built, constructed, operated, and in fact never shut down. How do you explain that?
Suit that Peter Kawaja has filed in the Southern District Court of Florida. He is charging war crimes against the Bush administration. He has filed a lawsuit against 100 federal agents. He has accused them of war crimes, concealment, conspiracy, corruption, aiding and abetting, fraud, misprision of a felony, obstruction of justice, tampering with a witness. You see, this has come forward. This information is known. You're just not being told about it. One thing I want to show you here, this is his response to the defendant's motion to dismiss. He's doing this pro se, by the way, and it's been in the law in the system for 2 years now, and he has kept it there. So I commend him for that. He's saying here that that patient is in the court system, and he needs the support. We need to support the fact that we're aware of this case, and we're going to be watching this case because we don't want it to get dismissed. By the way, when he filed this lawsuit against the United States government, you know what? They didn't come back and deny anything. They simply said, we deserve immunity. because we're the United States government. This is part of to the Inspector General, or to President Clinton, September 4th of 94. And so they then filed this with the Inspector General. President Clinton sent it to Inspector General, and he started this wonderful Presidential Advisory Task Force. I don't know if you've heard about it or...
I sit here and wonder why this is happening. It's not supposed to be this way. I look around me and I see my world crumbling, my dreams evaporating, and my hopes disappearing. I grasp for the thread that is my final hope, that all of this is going to work out. How did it come to this? My husband went to Saudi Arabia in 1990. I was pregnant with our first and perhaps only child. It seemed so simple. The air war was first. That was good. It meant less problems for those who would follow on the ground. We knew things were happening before the military did, or so it seemed. It all appeared so benign, when really it was all a staged production. Only the majority of the cast didn't know. The government of the United States of America made a decision that 700,000 plus people that were fighting against Saddam Hussein were expendable. They shot them up with experimental vaccines and drugs in the name of protection, and then exposed them to lethal weapons of mass destruction and sat back to see what happened. The parades at homecoming were innumerable, the pats on the back countless. But where are all those well-wishers now? Now that those who served are dying, not dying of obvious things like gunshot wounds or mortar blasts, but rather dying a slow death from exposures too numerous to count. Dying in ignorance because the government that sent them isn't letting them in on their little secret. When my husband joined the Army, we were both prepared for him to have to defend what we believed in. We were prepared to sacrifice the ultimate gift in order to ensure that this great country would endure for our children to inherit. What we weren't prepared for was to have the same country turn their collective backs on us and ignore us as we cried for help. We weren't prepared to be a part of the sick experiment that some desk jockey dreamed up without considering the consequences. We weren't prepared to have our sacrifice be meaningless. I have watched a very vital and proud man grow old before his time. I have watched as he attempted to spend some time with our daughter, only to catch the look in his eyes as he remembers that he may be killing her as he plays with her. I have watched this man that I love takes me in his arms to make love to me and then hesitates, wondering if he is killing me too. I have seen how he and others are treated by those that caused this, and it infuriates me. The men and women who went and the families they left behind deserve better than this. This country was founded on integrity, honesty, and freedom, both personal and as a collective whole. That is not what I see now. I see a government that is so filled with corruption that it no longer serves the people, but rather serves itself. I see a country of individuals that has become disinterested in what happens in their own country and to their fellow citizens. I see something worse than communism, in that communism is a professed government of hardship. What we have is a lie covered up with appearances. My mother is from Germany, a naturalized citizen. I remember when she was studying for her citizenship test, how we used to talk about this country's beginnings. She would often tell me that the people in this country only thought they were free. But in reality, the people in this country were more oppressed than some of the communist states. I always thought my mother was a little crazy for thinking that. Until now. She's right. I want someone to pay for this, not only for my husband, our daughter, and me, but for all the families who have been pulled into this gigantic game of Russian roulette. I want the dreams that my husband and I had to become a reality. For those of you who are out there, who are the spouse or loved one of a Gulf veteran, please do not give up hope. You did not do this to yourself or your loved one. Seek out other Gulf War families to talk with, because right now they are the only ones who really understand what you're feeling. Our loved ones went over to Saudi and our soldiers to protect and serve this great country and what it was founded on. We remained at home supporting them and their cause. The wounds they brought home have been passed to family and friends. Now we are all soldiers fighting, not only to preserve our great country, but to live. The battle remains. Only the enemy has changed. There was a man. Thank you. Thank you. There was a man a long time ago by the name of William Wallace that said, "All men will surely die. Few men ever truly live." America, you've got to wake up, because Gulf War syndrome and what happened and the crimes involved in the Gulf War affects you. It affects your freedom. It affects the Constitution. They're bringing the war to you.
We saw these people at work already. This team is now already at work. 2 years ago in India and last year in May of '95, they went into Saudi. They have include the creating of a cordon sanitaire that is literally forming a line around the area that no one may enter or leave, quarantining people, testing, forcing people to be treated against their will, taking control of food and water supplies, banning mass gatherings and other forms of free speech. In other words, a complete police state crackdown.
Brian Ellison, could I safely assume then, do I understand correctly, you are maintaining that the Gulf War syndrome is a weapon used in the arsenal by the conspirators for world government to provide a plausible reason for their imposing a totalitarian dictatorship on various regions of the earth? Did I understand what you just said?
That's absolutely right. This would be the alleged danger of infectious disease. But unless they can convince the public that we're under the danger of infectious viruses and diseases, they would have no justification to enact those powers.
Dr. Garth Nicholson, you have heard what your fellow molecular biologist Brian Ellison has just said, I hope. And
Dr. Jim Privatera, are we talking then about the fact, is it a fact, then that the government is waging war against the American people via the Gulf War syndrome, via the chronic fatigue syndrome and related symptoms?
It affords us the opportunity maybe to have someone who is suffering from the Gulf War illness, who is a military man who has been in the Marine Corps for the past 12 years. He now is deathly ill. His wife is deathly ill, and they have a child that has birth defects. John, are you there? Was called up by somebody who basically, and I quote, "You drop this whole Gulf illness thing or we're going to kill your ass." Click, hang up. It's not to wear your mask, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I want to get to a really heavy question. Most of the men you know in the military, if they were persuaded, convinced that they carry within themselves a biological time bomb that can be triggered if it hasn't already been triggered, but in addition to the agent that's identified as the Gulf War illness by the Nicholsons, Mycoplasma incognitus, if they found out that at some point by the injection or by the introduction of a secondary chemical, it would trigger something that would kill them, would you say that I think you shared with me, there was almost 900,000 men and women in the Gulf?
Die. Run, and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
About your woman.
She was my wife. They killed her to get to me.
Of real interest is, how did this information come out? Desert Storm was in 1990, 1991. Why is this information now just... I had nothing else to go by. I had no evidence. And it was a godsend when someone approached me and said, you need to talk to a guy named Kawaja. I said, a guy named Kawaja? What does that mean? And I said, nobody's named Kawaja. And yes, there was a very real Peter Kawaja. I was put in touch with him, contacted him in Boca Raton, Florida, and we began several months of trying to develop a confidence level. It was not easy. He didn't trust me, and I didn't trust him. We faxed back for months and months, sometimes many times a day. And of course, developing a credibility in someone is very difficult, and it's also very tenuous. It can be broken very easily. And I am grateful, I am so grateful that he did not lose faith in me and that he did continue to communicate with me, because I did learn the truth behind the Gulf War. I will go into a little bit more about Peter Kawaja later, but simply to say to you that he is the key to this entire story. There is no one in this nation that has done as much for the Desert Stormers than Peter Kawaja, and they don't even know it yet. Peter is, in my estimation, a true hero. And I am so grateful that he didn't stop. And I am so grateful that he does not stop today, because he will continue regardless of the price that he must pay. And we have both made a decision not to stop. So it is our intent to continue to tell you the truth, to tell America the truth. And I can only say that we have been threatened, we have been told we will be silenced, and we have been told that we have no idea what is getting ready to happen to us. I simply want to say, if there are any federal agents in the audience, that we will not stop. Distinct pleasure. Because you see, if there was ever an American hero, it is Peter Kawaja. And I don't say that lightly. You see, the world does not yet know who Peter Kawaja is or what he did. I had no idea. I had no idea he was fighting for all Desert Stormers like myself 5 years ago. I had no idea that he would lose his wife as a result of his desire to want to bring justice and not have tyranny in this world. I had no idea that he was fighting night and day, begging to get someone to listen to his story, that he was fighting the CIA and the FBI. This man is truly a hero because he did not stop. And he is yet to get his reward. And he is yet to learn how America feels about him. He is yet to have the response from the Desert Stormers, because you see, they don't even know that Peter Kawaja exists. But you're going to hear a story tonight that you will not believe, and I can only say you are so fortunate for being here. I thank you for caring about America. I thank you for caring about our Desert Stormers, and I want to introduce to you the man who will really save America, Peter Kawaja.
Over Baghdad, dancers of death, murder in the air with the next breath. Macho queens selling war makers' toys, raining destruction, good old boys. Deathbringer in Queen George's eyes, read his lips, war maker lies. religious rites, revenging sword. Thou shalt kill in the name of the Lord. The sheep and the cattle can't keep from milling. Some are more than ready, some aren't willing. Volunteering in what they're not dying for. The young Republican Guard crying for war. Free speech, as free as it's thought. Controlled behavior reacts as it's taught. Fighting for peace, can't comprehend. Hate out of love is violent pretend. Bombs over Baghdad. Bombs over Baghdad. Bombs over Baghdad. Bombs over Baghdad. Vampires drinking blood and oil cocktails. Their violence works, it hardly ever fails. When blind man can't see, he believes blind. Blind obedience is the child of mindless mind. New world order is an old world lie. Fighting for peace, see how they die. Dragging in God as they turn violent. God says nothing, he just remains silent. Stop madmen from running loose. Mother Earth woman can't take the abuse. Living right now is living for tomorrow. Time is saying there's no more time to borrow. Vampires drinking blood and oil cocktails. Their violence works, it hardly ever fails. Bombs over Baghdad, dancers of death. Murder in the air, then the next breath. Macho queens selling war makers' toys. Raining destruction, good old boys. New world order, it's a whole world line. Fighting for peace, watch them all die. Dragging in God as they turn violent. God says nothing, he just remains silent. Bombs over Baghdad, dancers of death. Bombs over Baghdad, dancers of death. Bombs over Baghdad, dancers of death. Bombs over Baghdad, dancers of death.